The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report, TV and radio. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998. Live from the 540 ESPN studios in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, this is the Pro Wrestling Report with David Hero, Frank Cosentino, Linda Kay, and your host, Dameon Nelson.
Lights, camera, action.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com, along with the lovely Linda Kay, the Hall of Famer, David Hero.
Absolutely.
I'm the Cos. I'm hosting tonight. Why? I don't have the answer, so I'm giving it up to you, Dave. You saw Dameon last.
Yes, I did see him last.
Okay. You want to explain to everyone where he is?
He's just being the diva that he is.
I thought I'm the diva.
Well, you are the
You're
diva, but he's the diva, and he felt 4th of July. He wanted off.
He talked to Sylvan and got that done.
And you know what? I think that's great because, to be honest, I don't want to spend my 4th of July with Dameon Nelson. You know, but I have someone else, a replacement for him tonight.
Yes, and in the second segment,
Absolutely.
very shortly, we will introduce the superstar.
We got an upgrade tonight.
We do.
Yes.
We do. But we want to spend tonight with you, the listeners. This is your show. 800-990-3776. Locally, Milwaukee, 414-276-ESPN. PWRshow.com. Twitter.
You can follow us at twitter.com/PWR show. And, of course, we take your comments off our Facebook page, facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report. And, again, submit your suggestions for songs when we come back from the breaks.
Yes, the bumper music. The bumpers are yours.
Listen, they're suggestions.
Yes.
Doesn't mean we're going to play them tonight. I mean, Nelson's not here, so it's kind of like our show. He can deal with it next week.
That's right. You'll have to edit.
You know, if you're not here, you're not here.
That's a good point.
So it'll be a super friendly show tonight.
That's right. Tonight, Raw ended. We want your thoughts. The question of the evening is this, and I want you to be as specific as possible for those of you that watched Raw this evening, watched what happened last week as Raw ended with CM Punk. Did the WWE, how can I phrase this correctly?
Did they ruin it?
Yeah. I guess that go right to the point. Mm-hmm. Did they basically not let this go another week or two with CM Punk?
Well, I think we should talk to our expert about that.
We will. Mm-hmm. We'll get a professional's answer, which is better than ours, obviously. But we want your thoughts on it, too. Should they have waited a couple extra weeks with CM Punk? And your thoughts on Raw overall. You're also, if you have thoughts on TNA.
They got a big pay-per-view this weekend.
They do.
Destination X, they're going to bring back the 6-sided ring.
Nice.
But no TNA World Championship match on that one. No Ken Anderson, which means no super friendly points for me on Sunday.
How are you doing in this thing, by the way?
I'm killing them.
Is it a route?
But honestly, you have to watch the pay-per-view on Sunday, Frank, because I'm not going to watch this one. So you and Dameon can do the post show, or Linda, you can watch it. And you can do it with him.
There you go.
I can do that.
I just, as much as I like Kaz and Abyss and AJ,
is this it's a throwaway?
I need to see a little bit more than just a whole bunch of high spots. I know that's like how they built TNA with the X division,
right?
But I just don't know if $35 is worth it for me.
It's true. So if you have an opinion on TNA's pay-per-view coming up this Sunday, feel free again to chime in on that.
And here's the thing. Everyone says we don't talk about TNA enough. Nelson's not here. So it's going to be like I said, the super friendly fan show. You guys want to talk about TNA? We can talk a little bit about Ring of Honor, not too much because...
Not too much has happened.
Well, no. And, we'll talk about Punk, Ross, Alberto Del Rio winning the number one contenders match.
That's right.
So,
all right, we had a week and a half, almost 2 weeks now with the Pumpkins. And by the way, it happened
last week.
It happened last week.
It's been a week. Where have you been?
busy. But I don't
The
think,
Leah Sophia convention still in town?
you know, I'll have to talk about that off the air. Anyway, based on what happened this evening, Mr. Hero,
Yes.
my question to you, which is the question that we're going to be asking our special guest and the listeners out there, did they didn't end the storyline, but did they kind of put it on the fast track?
For?
Punk.
Oh, the pay-per-view's in a week from now.
Well, I'm just curious
2
what
weeks.
they're going to do leading up to it. We still have another Raw this upcoming Monday, and I'm just curious how they're going to grab everybody's attention, get them as emotionally involved again as how Raw ended last
The interesting thing is that pay-per-view's in Chicago, CM Punk's hometown, which is an anti-John Cena crowd. So they're trying to make CM Punk the villain, but at the end of the day, he'll be cheered.
Because they're in his hometown.
And
That helps.
Chicago is not a John Cena town.
It's not east enough. Let's go to the phones. We'll start line 2, Dwayne in Detroit. Dwayne, you're on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hello? Yeah.
Dwayne, how are you, man?
I'm going all right. I think that I have a feeling they're going to really, screw this storyline up just by what transpired just now, just with the whole reinstatement thing. I mean, they should have kept it going, another week. I just see it, I just see the whole build-up and the whole CM Punk promo. I just see it all, ending after Money in the Bank, and then that's it.
And how do you think it ends?
Cena winning.
Cena winning. And then what happens to Punk?
Then he's gone for maybe about 6 months. I mean, he's going to come back, but I mean that's that. So that's how I think about it.
Let me ask you this: do you like it? Do you like the
know what?
storyline?
The story. Let me tell you. Last week, it had me totally I was totally tuned in, and you know what I'm saying? Because lately I was bored with it. I was like, you know what? I don't even want to watch it. I barely even watch it now.
Yeah.
As it is. It's because it's still the same stuff every week, the same people wrestling, the same, main events every night. You know what I mean? I mean, they need something new, and this was new. It's so many directions that they can go in this, and it's they're just dropping the ball. It's almost like they did it just to get pay-per-view buy rate, and then, once they get that, then, okay, let's go back to the entertainment stuff. You know what I mean? I think I speak for everybody that's a fan of wrestling, that we want wrestling. I mean, you can have the entertainment, but, you know what I mean? Give us wrestling. Give us fresh storylines. Give us new people. Things of that nature. I had watched the Monday Night Wars DVD, and I was, so intrigued by it. And I was like, man, that was, such a good era when you had, the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
Looking back and forth between channels. It was like TNA and WWE is I don't know what they're doing. Both shows is horrible. I don't even watch TNA.
Yeah.
And I barely watch WWE now. And it's getting to the point where I probably won't even watch it again until I find it interesting.
Sounds good. Dwayne, thanks a lot for the phone call. We come back. Callers, hang on. We will get to you, and we will introduce our special guest of the evening. We are broadcasting live from the Time Warner Cable Studios in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Report, 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com.
This is the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, real.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com. Want to join the program? You can at 800-990-3776. Locally in Milwaukee, 414-276-3776. Again, you can join us on Twitter. That's correct, Linda? Twitter?
Twitter.com/PWR Show. And, of course, on Facebook, Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report.
That music you hear in the background, that's not only our bumper, it's our special guest joining in studio, which is always a treat.
Absolutely.
To have a superstar in studio. It's Scotty too. Hotty. Scotty, how are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Tremendous.
Tremendous.
My first question to you is, what are you up to?
I just came to Milwaukee for the weekend to hang out with my friend David Hero. You know, he's always good for a free meal, so I thought I'd come up here. And,
That'll be in Scotty's book also, I guess. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I haven't written it yet. But
Before we get into any wrestling advice and stories and stuff like that, we want to make sure that people can get a hold of you as far as a Twitter account, a Facebook.
They can just call Dave, and his number is
414-915-9292.
I am on Twitter at the Scotty Too Hotty. The Scotty Too Hotty, I guess.
At the Scotty Too Hotty.
Yeah, somebody already took Scotty Too Hotty, so it had to be the.
All right.
Dead silence.
Well, I guess Frank took it.
Kind of like my dead career.
Well, let's talk about what you're doing, traveling the country.
Traveling the world, actually, in the last few weeks, man. I just did a meet and greet tour to Kosovo 2 weeks ago with to go over to Camp Bandsteel in Kosovo and visit the U.S. Army troops over there, and went over with Rocky Johnson, Tony Atlas, Tiffany from ECW, and Angela Fong, formerly of ECW too. So that was cool. That's one thing, man. It's like even though I'm not wrestling all that much, it's still getting to do a lot of cool things. The week before that, I played in a celebrity golf tournament in Orlando, which is where I live, and get to hang out with a lot of cool people and meet a lot of cool people and do a lot of cool things. And that's I was very lucky. I always say this. I was with the WWE when it was the thing. Like the whole world was watching. I mean, you're talking about Raw and Nitro both doing 8s sometimes at the top at the end of the show.
Right.
So it's like everywhere you went, there was you go to a theme park and you see a million DX shirts, NWO shirts, Austin 316. Where you're lucky to see one wrestling shirt if you go to a park now. So it's like
we did see one today. It was a Job Squad shirt.
Whose shirt is that?
The Al Snow shirt today.
Oh yeah.
What do you miss about the WWE and just your wrestling career? As far as
funny, man. I used to say I can't wait to get off the road because I hated the traveling and being in the cars and the airports and all that stuff. But it's actually that's the big thing I miss now is just the traveling. You know, you don't realize it. I think when you're with the WWE, your life's going 100 miles an hour. You know, at my busiest year, which was 2000, I did I think 200 shows, between 2 and 250 shows. And when the Too Cool Rikishi thing was on fire, you're wrestling those days, but then you're also doing third party appearances. You're doing on sales at the arenas. You're doing back to back radio phone ins when you're home on your day off. So it's going so fast that you can't really appreciate it. Now looking back, it's fun. It's fun to go back and watch some of that old stuff. But I miss performing in front of the large crowds, of course. But life's good, man. I'm a personal trainer in Claremont, Florida, just north of Orlando, and I love that. You get to help people out, and I still get to go out and do the tours and pick and choose what I want to do. So
you're in control.
Yes.
He runs his own show. It's the Scotty Too Hotty World Tour. We were down at Six Flags Great America today. We did 2 shows
in Gurney.
Packed crowds, between 800 and 900 people at each show, all there for Scotty Too Hotty.
I thought they were there for the Dave Hero free meal, but
yeah, but that.
What did you offer?
What did I offer?
A free meal. What was it?
It was a steak on a stick, wasn't it?
Something like that.
Yeah.
Deep fried and all that.
Absolutely.
Funnel cakes.
You know what? They don't have funnel cakes at Six Flags.
I thought it was
Out
a fried.
here.
I thought it was a
Out
fried
here.
pickle on a stick.
You know what? No, that was last night.
Yes, we went to see Kid Rock last night in Milwaukee, so that was pretty cool.
Detroit's own.
Right?
How was that? How did you enjoy that show?
It was awesome. I mean, we both said, coming from what I do, I think you watch shows totally different than the average fan, and you just see how hard he works, and you can appreciate it a little bit more, and it's funny, Dave and I were talking about like everybody's using the big screens and the pyro now, and it's like it seems like wrestling started all that, and they've incorporated it into these rock shows now. Which 10 years ago, I can't remember who it was, but there was a rock guy who said, when the whole grunge thing happened and the concerts kind of went to hell, and there was a rocker who said that wrestling is more rock and roll than rock and roll is rock and roll now, which is true.
Absolutely.
Wrestling just took all that cool stuff from the Kiss shows, and incorporated that pyro and the screens and everything into it.
When you watch Kid Rock's pyro, it was Undertaker's pyro. and Kane's pyro. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah, and when you watch Sheryl Crow's pyro, it was Scotty Too Hotty's pyro. So,
when you're out traveling and in the wrestling gig, people want to see the worm. Talk a little bit about how that got started. That
started really as a joke. I would do it on the house shows or live events, as they call them now, and non-televised events. And I would just do it kind of to make the other guys laugh, out of nowhere, just kind of do it. And it wasn't the whole production that it eventually became. Mm-hmm. And then when the Too Cool thing started to take off, I did, I would hit the ropes, stop, and then worm, and I was doing all kinds of different stuff. I was trying out like the worm into a headbutt, the worm into an elbow drop, and all this different stuff. And then I started hopping from the front side of the ring to the back. And one night on Raw, Jerry Lawler spelled out WORM. And I heard the play back, and I went to him, and I was like, man, I think if you can do that a few times, it would catch on. And sure enough, man, I think it was like a month later, the arenas were chanting it. It was awesome. And then I'd go into the worm, and then the whole hoo at the end. I was just blown up out of my mind. I could hardly breathe. I was sucking wind. So it was just me going, hoo. And then the people picked up on that, too, and they started doing it, too. It's one of those things, man, that you just can't sit down and go, hey, this is going to be huge. It's going to become what it did. I was very fortunate to get something like that. As goofy as it was, as out there it was. What it did was it brought people into the ring. It gave them something to do, and when they're spelling WORM, that was bringing them into the match, just like all of Rock's catchphrases, same deal. And I feel like that's a big part of what's missing right now is all those things that brought the fans into the ring, with Austin's catchphrases and Rock and just all those different things. It was fun, man. And that's why, the last caller talked about he wanted wrestling. Wrestling doesn't sell tickets. I don't care if wrestling sold tickets. There'd be high school gyms across the country with jam-packed watching amateur wrestling. And people want to be entertained. What's missing is the intriguing characters that people can relate to, I think. And that's my opinion. But, when I was there, from opening match to the last match, everybody that walked through that curtain, you knew as soon as their music hit who it was. You knew the character, whether it was Kai and Tai or Crash Holly or myself, all the way to Austin and the glass breaking. And I think that's what's missing. Everybody's music sounds pretty much the same, and everybody looks pretty much the same. But hey,
but there's only 3 or 4 guys that ever truly get over.
But I'm a personal trainer in Claremont, Florida, so who am I?
Successful. That's most important.
Exactly.
How did you get into professional wrestling?
I started probably bouncing around a ring when I was 15. That summer when I was 15, had my first professional match when I was 16. And then just started working indies in the New England area. And then a guy that I'd met on an indie show, Phil Apollo, had been doing extra work for WWF at the time, all over New England. And they called him and said they needed another guy, so I went with him. And 20 years ago next month, man, I had my first match for the WWF in Rochester, New York. It was myself and Sonny Blaze against the Beverly Brothers.
You always remember your first match, right?
Yeah, for sure, man. So I was still in high school. I was a junior in high school, and so I actually skipped school to go, play wrestler. So and it's a lot. I always say it's a lot like being in a rock band. You know all these people. Everybody's got a friend who's in a band, and you just play the small bars, and it's the same thing with a wrestler. You just play the small arenas in the indies, and you learn, and you refine your skills, and you meet people and hope for that break. I always say it's 5% look, 5% talent, and 90% right place at the right time. And for me, it was that the light heavyweight division that they signed me for. And never took off, but it gave me the opportunity to go there and work. At the time we were working 10 days straight, 4 days off. So it gave me the opportunity to go there and work with the best in the world and get better. I didn't become Scotty Too Hotty for the first 2 years I was there. People barely knew who I was. So, but it gave me that opportunity to be there and be on the road and be with the best in the world and learn, So, which is something that's, something else that's wrong today is guys are just, they have a rocket strapped to them. They're signed for FCW, guys who never even watched wrestling in their life, and they're getting paid, a few $100 a week to go down there and train to be a wrestler,
that don't know the basics, that you can't ask them what they think about even someone like a Lenny Lane that was a mid-card guy in WCW or a lower card, they don't even know who they are.
No, the guys. There's probably guys there now that who wouldn't even know a guy like Savio Vega,
Right.
a name like that, somebody like that, probably half of them wouldn't know who I was. I've been gone, since 2007, so it's 4 years, and they don't because they're not fans. I would have cut off my left arm to be there,
Right.
And these guys are, they're out scouting them. They have a good look, so they give them, a nickel a week to go down there and train. If it was me, I would say, okay, we're going to give you guys, a little bit of money to get by on, but we've also got to hook up with Home Depot. We're going to get you a job.
Exactly.
We're going to get you a job, and if you really want to do this, you'll train during the day and you'll work at Home Depot at night. And I think that's part of the problem too. You've seen a lot of those guys down there get in trouble with OUIs and whatnot because they have too much time on their hands. You can't train to be a wrestler all day long. So they're training during the day, and then at night they have nothing to do. So you'll weed out the guys who really want it. I think if you did that, but I'm a trainer in Claremont, Florida.
There you go. How did you get the name Scotty Too Hotty?
I was wrestling as Scott Too Hot Taylor. I went in there. I went to WWF as Scott Taylor, and then I became Scott Too Hot Taylor with Brian Christopher as Too Sexy. We became too much, and then I had said I was doing commentary on Sunday Night Heat with Shane McMahon and I think Kevin Kelly one night, and I did it as Scott Too Hot Taylor. And then the following week I went back. I was on commentary again, and I said Scotty Too Hotty is back on Sunday Night Heat. And from there it kind of stuck in the back with the boys, and they started calling me that. And then when they told us what they wanted us to start the Too Cool character, they said, we basically want you to go. I can remember Russo pitching us the idea in Nassau Coliseum. He said, we want, next we're going to start Too Cool, and we want you to go out and dress like the kids are dressing in the malls. I was like, oh man, I hated that look anyway. So we went out with, me, the big fashion statement over here, going out there and buying all these baggy clothes and on
a Monday.
On a Monday, and there's not much open, and then. When the night we did it was in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I went to Russo and I said, if we're going to change, the name to Too Cool, why don't we change the individual names of the characters also? And I had already been being called Scotty Too Hotty, so I said, let's change it from Scott Too Hot Taylor to Scotty Too Hotty, but we'll change the 2 to the number 2 because at the time you had like Tupac and 2 Live Crew using just the 2, so that's how that happened. And eventually, I think that the character kind of evolved, or it wasn't even a hip hop wannabe anymore. It was just a kind of a fun character that didn't really care if he won or lost, just wanted to make the fans happy, which was cool. It was cool. It was so much fun.
Sounds good. You're going to stick around.
I am.
So we have a lot of questions for you. Our listeners have some questions for you, especially the stuff with CM Punk. I want to get your thoughts on how that went down and maybe what you would have done if you were given that situation. And, of course, your phone calls at 800-990-ESPN, 414 locally, 414-276-3776. When we come back, more from Scotty Too Hotty, Dave Hero, Linda Kay, myself, the Cos, and Dameon is not calling in, so bumper music.
We're not taking this call. And you know what? I think we'll let Scotty pick the music.
That'll work.
That way, Dameon's not going to want to beat him up, right?
Not a chance.
Not going to threaten Scotty Too Hotty.
Man, I wish I had the mullet back tonight.
You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com.
Follow us on Twitter for breaking news, live wrestling chat, and pure hilarity. Head over to twitter.com/PWR Show and be part of the conversation.
Everybody start gasping. I'm ready for the lights, camera, action. Go! You already know what it is. It's your boy C, right?
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com, 800-990 ESPN, locally Milwaukee, 414-276-3776, PWRshow.com. Get the latest information when our show will be on, which will be next Monday.
Monday night.
And
I like Monday nights.
Monday nights kind of fits and works well.
Mm-hmm.
When the next prime times and interactives, all that information is on PWRshow.com. And again, you can send in your tweets.
Twitter.com/PWR Show. Of course, Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report.
And we have a special guest in the studio. It's an upgrade, Dave. I agree.
Absolutely.
Scotty Hotty is joining us. Again, Scott, thanks for taking the time this evening. And
you know what? We lose the Nelson family chief, and we have a super friend in the studio. So works out. Former world tag team champion, right?
That's right. And a singles champion at one point.
And the Crunch and Munch poster child.
Yes. That's all that really matters, the Crunch and Munch. You can take all those titles and belts, and as long as I got the Crunch and Munch.
Mm-hmm.
We actually shot that in Chicago at the Allstate. Just talking about that the other day.
Did you get like boxes of Crunch and Munch?
Not one. There was probably a truckload delivered to Stanford, but I didn't get a single box.
I think Rikishi took all of it.
You're probably right.
Uh-huh.
Scotty, talk a little bit about your tag team partner, Rikishi, that whole time period, what it was like walking into arena and people are like, yes, it's time to have some fun. These guys are out. What was it like back then?
Oh, it was a blast. You know, it's cool to look back on YouTube and watch some of that stuff and just realize how crazy over it was.
Madison Square Garden Royal Rumble.
Yeah, everybody on their feet and you know, even on SmackDown and Raw and when we would dance with Hardy's and Lita and Dudley Boys, and pretty much everybody danced with us. I think pretty much everybody but Kane and
and Rock, right?
And Rock, yeah. But
that would have been interesting.
It was cool, you know, and the fans loved it, and it was something different. And you know, it's one of those things that, you know, you can't just say, hey, this is going to take off the way it did. It just it was magic. You know, that's why I said the three of us by ourselves was always good, but together it was magic. You know, and it's funny because you know, people always ask me about Brian and I, and then we really never clicked outside of the ring. We never rode together on the road of you know, even
oil and water.
Or
water and something else. I don't know.
And even with Rikishi, I didn't hang with Rikishi. You know, I love him, but it was just different personalities and different. We're just different people outside. But man, the three of us together in the ring was magic, for sure.
The challenge in a singles match and a tag team match, which one was easier, and which one did you like better?
I always liked tag better. I think the character needed somebody to play off. You know, whether it was with Brian or Rikishi or even A-Train. You know, that was actually a good time too for that short time that I was with A-Train.
Hip Hop Hippo.
The real Triple H. But it was, which I was just talking to Dave on the way here. I think with A-Train and I together, that would have really had some legs if they'd kept him as more of the straight guy of the giant, you know, killer, and just let me be the goofball, and it would have been something different. But they wanted him to dance, and it was almost like they were trying to replace Rikishi with him, and it never worked. But that was a good time though, because we were outside of the ring. We were good friends too. So I was just talking to him actually on the way over here. He's over in Japan doing awesome over there. So
he set a record today, or first time ever?
First time ever, New Japan, and I think it was Noah, tag team champions, him and his partner. So first time in history, one team has held both belts. So that's cool for him. I guess his future endeavors are working out okay for him. So.
Yeah, right.
You've had a lot of great moments in professional wrestling. Is there one that stands out?
I think I always say the 10-man tag that we did in Dallas when it was the three of us and Rock and it was Cactus Jack at the time against Hunter, X-Pac, Dean Malenko, Benoit, and Perry Saturn. And then you had Eddie Guerrero on the outside. You had Stephanie on the outside. You had Kane and Paul Bearer coming back in the finish. You had the Outlaws out there. It was just so, and the crowd was off the hook, electric. And it was one of those deals too. When you have a 10-man, you have 10 different guys.
Oh yeah.
And in the outside and the referee, there's a lot going on. It has the potential to be a cluster, you know. And it was one of those things where everything just lined up right and worked out, and it was an awesome match. And you know, there's just that was probably the highlight, what I consider the highlight. Yeah.
Talking about awesome, last week the world of wrestling was on fire about CM Punk. Comes out and does his quote-unquote shoot interview on Triple H, on Stephanie, on Johnny Ace, on Vinnie Mac, on The Rock, on John Cena. You saw it. What did you think when you saw what CM Punk did sitting up there on the top of the ramp, just cutting his quote-unquote shoot promo?
Oh, I thought I didn't see it live. I started seeing everything show up on Twitter, and then I YouTubed it and watched it. That was the only part of the show I saw, but it was awesome. It was what everybody else, and no matter what he said or what he did or what happened with Cena, all that matters is the whole world was talking about it.
Right.
Whether it was a work, whether it was a shoot, I don't care. I don't know anybody there. I don't talk to anybody. I don't know either way. Whether he's under contract, whether he's really leaving. The important part is that people are talking about it again. They're talking about it outside of the wrestling circle. When you have Jim Rome talking about it and TMZ talking about it, that's really the reason that they pay these celebrities to come in at WrestleMania is to get the outside exposure. And you did it with one of your own guys. That's awesome. If it's handled right, this could be the turning point that everybody's waiting for, and maybe CM Punk's the next guy. You don't know. That's why you never know. You can be there and go, there's not another Rock here. You just don't know who that guy is. It could take that one moment to turn everything around, and then it just snowballs from there. And they go, maybe this is the formula that fans want. Because obviously the last couple of years it's been a little stagnant, and maybe this is it, and this is the guy, and other characters will spawn off from this. Maybe this is what people want. It's very attitude error-ish. Right. If that's a word, if you know what I mean. But I think it's exciting. I'm excited to see where it goes from here. In my honest opinion, I don't think he's going anywhere. Mm-hmm. Where's he gonna go? There's really nowhere for him to go.
If you were on the creative team, how would you have this go for the next 2 weeks?
I would have him walk out of Chicago with the belt and go to another company.
Well, not TNA, of course.
Not TNA, of course. No.
So you're saying
like
Ring of Honor,
Japan, what the companies that he mentioned, and I honestly think that's where it's going to go. Everybody be talking about it. So
maybe Vinnie Mac has a little bit of Gitas into Ring of Honor.
Even if he doesn't, I'm sure they would be glad to have him. It's only going to help them. It's only going to help. Like I said, as long as people are talking about it, it's not going to hurt WWE. It's not going to hurt Ring of Honor. It's only going to help Ring of Honor. And then what's it going to do to WWE? People are talking about, oh, wow, their guy walked out with a belt.
Now, when we watched the end of Raw and they showed the recap video of the quote-unquote shoot, you mentioned you thought that could kill off the angle. Yeah,
it's tough, though, because I'm thinking as me, and I don't know how a casual fan looks at that. Maybe you need to do that, but I would have rather them see them leave it alone. Mm-hmm. If that's the route they're going to go. But who knows? It's going to be interesting to see it play out over the next couple of weeks. It's and I don't watch a lot of wrestling anymore, so it's got me interested.
You're too busy with Words with Friends.
Words with Friends and the personal training in Claremont, Florida. Yeah, did I mention that? Yeah.
What gym is it in?
I can't tell you that.
That'll be on PWRshow.com later on tonight. Mm-hmm.
There you go. When you were given the mic, and I'm assuming there was some kind of script points that they wanted you to make. How much did you get to improvise, or did you get any time to improvise?
I didn't get a lot. I was just talking to somebody about this recently. That was where the hardest part for me as Scotty to Hotty was to find out how the character would talk. The WWE wanted me to talk like Vanilla Ice or a white boy
or
wannabe rapper.
Yeah.
And to me, I hated that. So how do you make a character likable and talk that way? Mm-hmm. And so it was always hard. I wanted to talk more as myself, and they wanted me to talk the other way, and I was just so uncomfortable doing it that it came across horrible whenever I did have the chance to talk, which I was never, I've never been claimed to be a good talker on the mic anyways. So I had a hard time with that.
The reason why I bring that up is when we were watching CM Punk last week, it seemed like they were giving him certain talking points that you can go as far as you want, but depending on what your opinion on it, maybe they gave him, hey, you can say this, but don't go there or something like that. Do you think there were certain parts that he shouldn't have said, or do you think everything was just scripted to the bone?
They may have given him some leeway. I would say They said just go out and say what you want to say, and it really doesn't matter because I can promise you that Vince McMahon was happy with it. Mm-hmm. Everybody underneath doesn't matter. As long as that guy's happy, what are you going to say? Jim Rome was talking about it. TMZ was talking about it. Look at all the publicity they got. It's not like you hurt anybody's feelings.
Right.
It's all been said before, just never on that show.
Exactly.
Yeah, we sit here all the time.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
In studio right now is Scotty to Hotty. If you have questions, you can send it via Twitter and also on the phone lines at 800-990-3776. Locally, Milwaukee, 414-276-3776. And let's take a call here before we head to break and speak to Devin in Yonkers. Devin, you're on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey, Keith Tiesick, Devin.
And Linda Kay.
What's going on?
I have a question actually for David, the Hall of Famer hero. It's a hypothetical scenario. If John Cena and Randy Orton got injured around the same time and they were both out for a year, who can the WWE build their company around for that year, or do they even have enough star power to do that?
Boy, they'd probably have to turn Del Rio babyface quick. Yeah, because they haven't done a good job of elevating anybody else. I mean, you have Wade Barrett, you have Sheamus, you have Del Rio, who are kind of their top heels, but haven't really had that big match yet. Yeah, they would be in a lot of trouble, because John Morrison's out.
Right.
Yeah, they'd have to turn one of their heels babyface, and I don't know. I don't think any of those guys are ready yet for that.
None of them, hey?
I mean, John Cena's the guy that has put the company on his shoulders. Randy Orton's been the same way. It's their two main guys. It's the main guys for each brand. And, they haven't built up anybody else, especially on the SmackDown brand. I mean, when you use Mark Henry as much as they are, and you have Christian, they'd be in a lot of trouble.
Let's continue on the phones and speak to Nick in California. Nick, you're on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Nick.
I guess, first off, it's, I guess they got my name wrong. It's actually Vic.
Vic?
Oh, Vic.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, man.
Like as in Ron Mexico, Vic?
Yeah, I guess. Well, first of all, how are you guys doing tonight?
Doing great.
Good to hear. Just want to share my thoughts on tonight's Raw.
Okay.
Sadly enough, I think the only interesting wrestling I've seen today has been my Best of Nitro DVD. Because it seems like Raw's gone back to business as usual. Dull, boring, stale. They're taking the CM Punk thing. I watched the promo last week, loved it. Blew my mind completely. I thought, well, maybe, they're going to go back, dip a little bit into the Attitude Era, not too much so people get mad. But, I thought it'd be somewhat interesting. Now I kind of just going back to the same old staleness, predictability. I mean, the way I see it, Cena wins, Punk leaves, period, end of story. Mm-hmm. My thoughts are, what do you guys think is going to follow up after this? Do you guys see the predictability that I see? Maybe it's just me.
Thanks a lot for the phone call. Hero, what do you think? Or Linda, what do you think? Let's go to Linda.
All right, well.
She's like, thanks,
I'm
pal.
scrolling through our Facebook and Twitter pages
I
right
put you on the
now.
spot. I shouldn't have done it. They could go a couple different directions if you want, but I just think it does make sense for him to take a couple of months off.
John Cena?
Or in this case, Punk.
You know what though? But I do
makes
like
sense.
Scotty's idea. If you listen, here's the thing: you invest that much into a guy to cut a promo to rip the entire company like that, you got to do something special with him.
My opinion is he's already signed. He's under contract. There's no way that you invest all that, what they did last week, into a guy who's leaving the company. Why are you going to make him the biggest star in the business and then send him on his way? There's no way. Just knowing Vince McMahon, there's no way that he's not already signed. I may be wrong, but
the only sticking point they really had with his contract was that Vince wanted to own and trademark CM Punk, the brand, and Punk didn't want to give that up. But I'm sure that they were able to figure something out. But the Worm Man is right. You can't let him go somewhere else, as white hot as he is right now.
Mm-hmm. One thing we debated about last week was Punk mentioning the competition. What are your thoughts on that? If you're working for WWE, would you mention the competition? Do you think that's good business, bad business, or it's indifferent?
Apparently it's good because everybody's talking about it. I keep going back to that, but like maybe that's what the fans know, these other companies that are out there. So why it's not going to hurt the WWE. The WWE is always going to be the biggest company out there, especially at this point. When WCW was around, they were neck and neck, but it's not going to do any bad. It's only going to be good. So why not mention it? Make it look like he could go to those companies, and he may. He may do it. So,
I mean, who knows? Maybe Vince was brokering the deal that would have Ring of Honor be almost like a feeder company for them, where they could send the FCW guys.
Right. Let's continue on the phones and speak to Glenn in Orlando. Glenn, you're on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing good, Glenn.
Great.
Am I not mistaken? Is that Scotty Too Hotty on the radio?
It is.
All right, then I have a question for Scotty Too Hotty.
Go ahead.
Do you think that it's possible now, with all the fans wanting the Attitude Era back, do you think it's possible for them, with the roster they have right now, to be like the Attitude Era, with the roster they have and where they are right now?
For sure, man. I think it's about like I said, it's not about the wrestling. It's about developing the characters. And that's what the Attitude Era was about. Was everybody had their own character. It wasn't about wrestling. It was about the individuality of everybody. And I think they need to get back to that. And I think they're on their way now.
But back then, every guy in the roster had a chance to win a big match.
Not necessarily. I think everybody just had their own identity. Maybe you're right.
Well, I mean, you had the Hollies, who were tag team champions. You had Al would team with Mick, and then you had Val Venus was in different all kinds of programs. But you're right. The character development was far better.
Way
back
better.
then.
Yeah, and really, if you look at the wrestling boom in the '80s. With Boss Man and Ted DiBiase and Jake the Snake and Coco Beware, it was the same thing. It wasn't about wrestling. It was about the uniqueness of each character. Everybody had their own thing, their own identity, and it's so much more marketable than just a wrestler. You
wrestled many years in the WWE. Is there a wrestler that you wish you would have had an opportunity to get in the ring with?
I wrestled Shawn Michaels when I was first starting. I actually wrestled him in my hometown. But I would have liked to have had a real match with him later on in my career. Randy Savage. I never wrestled Bret Hart. Hulk Hogan. Loved to have done something with him. And pretty much everybody else I had some type of match with. So that handful of guys would have been awesome.
Was there someone that you maybe didn't want to wrestle as much, or was kind of a challenge? Like, oh man, I can't believe I got to wrestle this guy.
Oh, Khali was rough.
Yeah.
I love him, but man, I can remember they'd had me out on the road with him when he first came in, and having to take his finish every night. And I'd already had neck fusion at this point, and the guy's 7 feet tall, so when he picks you up by your throat and lifts you up above his head, your head is literally 10 feet in the air, and then he just drops you backwards, and there's no way to take it the right way. It's like your butt hits, and then your lower back hits, then your upper back hits, then your neck snaps back, and your head bounces off the mat. So that sucked. But I always got along well with everybody. And there's nobody I really dreaded working with. No.
Let's take one more call before we hit the top of the hour. I speak to Jake in Tennessee. Jake, you're on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey, first off, I hope y'all guys had a great 4th of July.
Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah. I was just curious to what you think about this. If the Punk promo from last Monday, if that would have happened in the Attitude Era, do you think it would have been, caused as much, I don't know, do you think it would have been talked about as much as it has, this past week? If it would have happened in the Attitude Era?
Good, Scotty.
Probably not as much. It still would have been pretty cool. I think it's so like you said, man. It's so out of the box for what's going on right now. It's so far out there. It hasn't been done. I mean, I can think back to Brian Pillman cutting a similar promo on Kevin Sullivan back on Nitro way back. It's just something that hasn't been done for a long time, and there's a lot of new fans that have never seen anything like it. So time goes so fast in wrestling.
And
there's
this
a
first
lot of
hour.
new fans. Yeah, right.
Second hour of Pro Wrestling Report is coming up. Stick around.
Follow us on Twitter for breaking news, live wrestling chat, and pure hilarity. Head over to twitter.com/PWR Show and be part of the conversation.
I'm ready for lights, camera, action. Go! You already know what it is.
Second hour of the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com. This bumper music is brought to you by Scotty Too Hotty.
Tonight, Scotty picks the music. It's our show tonight.
This is tolerable. Far better than listening to Akeem.
Ah, that was the
And what other jabroni
segment.
song did you pick last week?
Jimmy Wang Yang.
Yeah.
That was a fan submission, okay?
See what Linda does to us?
She's
Akeem,
changed, man. She's changed since I first met her.
She has changed, hasn't she?
How so?
You know.
That's how rumors start.
There you go. You can join the program, 800-990-3776. Locally, Milwaukee, 414-276-ESPN, PWRshow.com. You can join Twitter, and Linda will pick up some comments from there. How can they reach you on Twitter? Reach us on Twitter.
Twitter.com/PWR Show. And on Facebook tonight, we've been getting a lot of your comments on your thoughts on Raw tonight in week 2 of the CM Punk. What are we titling it? CM Punk scenario? I don't know.
Yeah.
Facebook.com/Pro Wrestling Report.
We are talking about CM Punk, but also if you have thoughts on TNA's upcoming pay-per-view, you're going to buy it? You're going to watch it? Are you interested? It is, I'm not going to call it a throwaway.
No, you know what? I'm sure it's going to be a very good pay-per-view.
It will be.
I'm sure it'll be a lot of amazing high spots, a lot of flips and crash and burn and everything else, but I don't know how it's going to further the product, how it's going to translate into people watching it, every week.
Characters sell tickets. Wrestling doesn't sell tickets. And that's an example. Nothing against any of those guys, but how many of those guys could you send out to a car dealership to do a signing for 2 hours and have 500 people? I mean, you couldn't send me out now, but in 2000 when Rikishi Too Cool was red hot, we would sign nonstop to the point where I couldn't even sign Scotty Too Hotty. It would be S2H or Scotty. If you wanted
Carpal tunnel?
Something like that. If you wanted to get everybody in, and to be able to meet everybody, and like I said, I couldn't do that now, but somebody who's on TV every week who's getting the exposure that some of those guys are, they should be able to do that with,
Right.
A lot of those guys could walk down the street and people wouldn't even know who they are. So,
what are your thoughts on TNA?
Long pause.
You like it that much, right?
I live 30 minutes away and from where they shoot at Universal Studios, and I've never done anything with them. I feel like I deserve an opportunity with some of the guys that they've brought in, with some of their past track records that they've given a chance to. I feel the guy who got over, who was a 200-pound guy in a monstrous world at WWE, went in and got over, and didn't do drugs, didn't show up late, didn't miss 2 shows in just over 10 years because of snowstorms. That guy deserves a chance, and they've never given me the chance. So, to each his own, whatever. I get along with everybody there fine. Jeff Jarrett, and I've gone to a couple of shows, but there's been no warm, fuzzy feelings, put it that way.
They gave you an opportunity. You might.
I could help some guys there, man. Whether it was character development or whatever, and that's what they need. I can still go. I'm in better shape now than I was in the Too Cool Rikishi.
Ridiculously good shape right now.
Easy, Dave.
That is how rumors are. We were at Six Flags today. People thought that he was the Incredible Hulk. It was ridiculous.
800-990-3776, 414-276 ESPN. Let's go to the phones and speak to Ricardo in Houston. Ricardo, you're on the Pro Wrestling
Yo, what up,
Report.
dog?
What up, dog?
What up, dog?
Anyways, just a quick thing about this TNA thing. the promo that you guys keep talking about Sting's promos, and some of your fans on Facebook are comparing him to the performance that Heath Ledger put on as the Joker in The Dark Knight. I think that's ridiculous.
Well, there are a lot of similarities between what Sting is doing right now.
There's no similarity. There's no similarity. Come on.
None whatsoever.
Really?
If you're hot, just say you're hot.
Yeah, no kidding. Don't get hot about it, Ricardo.
Don't sit there and insult the Joker, an iconic figure in pop culture, and compare him to Sting. Come on, don't do that.
Okay, we won't.
Okay. That was all. That was all.
All right, Ricardo, you enjoy your 4th and 5th.
And many more after that. Thanks for the phone call.
That guy's a better character than half the guys on TV right now. I mean, give him a job.
Was there, when you were wrestling, Scotty, was there an opportunity for you to think, I'd like to change a character, if there would be a character you'd like to get into? Obviously, those Too Cool thing was just on fire, and it's like, I'm not going to change anything now. But was there something that, I wish I could be this?
Yeah, towards the end, I would have loved to have a heel run. I felt like nobody would have expected it. I was like the most white meat baby face that they had. It would have been. It would allow me to do some cool stuff that I hadn't had the chance to do. That was really it. I actually talked to them about dropping the Too Hotty from the name though, because it was cool when I was 20, 26, 27 to be Scotty Too Hotty, but as I started to get older and as like mid-30s as I'm there, and then you get these guys that just look like they walked off a GQ cover of a magazine coming in and trying to pull off the name Scotty Too Hotty. It got harder and harder, but no.
Well, you traveled all over the world.
Every state but 3, and every continent but Antarctica.
I'm sure there are many, many stories that you can tell. Well, some maybe you can't tell on radio, but is there a traveling story that comes to mind if someone would say, boy, I remember traveling there, and anything that comes to mind?
Oh, God. Milwaukee has a lot of stories now. The last few times I've been up here, every time I come downtown, the last time I was here, I did a signing at a cowboy bar downtown to promote Blizzard Brawl last December. And so you had Scotty Too Hotty, a mechanical bull, and about 150 gay guys. They loved me.
Your Twitter blew up.
Well, hey, easy now.
They asked to see the worm, and I'm not sure what they were getting at. We crashed the commercial right here.
That was a Cousin Jack production.
And when you got your travel schedule, is there a city that you go, boy, I can't wait to hit that city?
Well, I'm a huge theme park nerd, so always, at the time I lived in Maine, and whenever I saw Orlando on there or Anaheim, I would always try to spend a little bit more time there and hit Disneyland or Disney World or love SeaWorld, so that was cool too.
So they gave you had an opportunity at times. I know you had a lot of wrestling was the most important, but did you have downtime to say, you know what, I've got the afternoon off? I've already done my training today and know what's going to happen. Did you have time for that?
For downtime?
Yeah.
Not a lot. Well, it depends. On the house shows, the live events, you wouldn't have to be there till an hour before the first match. TV, it's pretty much an all-day event. You have to be there at 1. Mm-hmm. And then the international tours are a whole other thing. There's very little downtime. I can remember going to Australia and doing 3 shows, and it was in that land that day, do the first show that night, do another show the second. And Australia is so big, we had to fly every day to another town. So there was, I could have been in Peoria and I wouldn't have known the difference. And that's another thing that's cool now is to be able to go back to some of these places and get booked. And of course, it's not the same money you're making for WWE, but I use it as a vehicle to take me to these places now. And I'll try to spend a few extra days there. I just took 3 or 4 dates in Ireland in September, and I actually reached out to them and said, hey, can you bring me over? And I get to go back to Ireland and see some cool guys I've worked with over there.
And you're Irish also. You didn't go check out your...
I thought I was Irish, but I just found out I'm not.
It's Dutch Irish.
Yeah, something like that.
2-0 Hotty. Absolutely.
There you go. If a new guy out of college, high school, whatever, came up to you and said, I'd like to get in the pro wrestling business, what would be the first things that you would tell this person, man or woman?
After just doing an indie show tonight, we were talking about this on the way here, it's very frustrating for me now to do some of these shows. At 38 years old, I should not be in the best shape of everybody on the show. You know, you go out, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of guys out there who, and I'm kind of avoiding, I'm going around your questions,
right.
but these guys now, it doesn't seem like they really want it. It's kind of like a side gig, a side hobby. Nobody looks the part. There's very few guys, and like I said, at 38, I shouldn't be in the best shape. There should be, the whole crew should look better than me. If they really want it, they really want to be in the big time in the WWE. They should be doing everything and look the part, and they don't. But as far as somebody wanting to get into it, that's funny because people ask me that about my kids. Would you allow your kids to be a wrestler? And
yeah.
I know the pitfalls, you know, with everything, and I know how hard it is, and the chance of really making it is pretty slim. But then on the other hand, like I said, I've gone so many places, done so many cool things, and still continue to do so many cool things that I would never. I mean, I'm a kid from a small town in Maine, 1,600, you know, population 1,600. So that's tough. You know, do you let your kids do it or not? You know,
if you weren't wrestling, what do you think you'd be doing?
Personal training.
Personal training.
Right,
You can answer that one.
Right from the get-go, you think maybe 15 years ago, you said, you know what, personal training is where I want to go.
No, not really. Actually, I've really just started enjoying working out in the last couple of years. I used to hate it, and I used to say if I wasn't wrestling, man, I wouldn't even set foot in a gym. But I really, it's kind of my outlet now. It's my addiction. It's what I do. But man, if I wasn't doing this, oh God, I don't know. That's a tough question. When I got hired.
You'd be in sports radio.
There you go.
Right? They got to talk to you after the show, Dave.
Got some tweets though. It's just people saying how tremendous #tremendous you've been tonight.
Tremendous. We're gonna wish Dave the best in his future endeavors when we get off the air here, and I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys.
That's the upgrade we really need. Right?
Oh, thanks.
10 o'clock. So what time should I be here next week?
10 Central. We come back more with Scotty 2 Hotty. Your phone calls and much, much more. We're broadcasting live for the Time Warner Cable Studios in beautiful downtown Milwaukee. You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Report, 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com.
Missed an episode on the Pro Wrestling Report? Thanks, pal. Subscribe to the show on iTunes and take the show with you wherever you go, even in the bathroom.
I'm ready for lights, camera, action. Go! You already know what it is. It's your boy Six, right?
This is the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, real.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com. Scotty 2 Hotty in the studio, along with the Hall of Famer David Hero, the lovely Linda Kay, looking at social media world. And the cause is Dameon's out.
Thank God. Well, you know what? I'll have to deal with him at TV this week.
Yeah.
Primetime. Be the booker this week. Destination X.
Destination X is coming up this Sunday night.
Linda is loving this bump music, isn't she?
I love my 80s rap.
Easy now. Jeez.
Honestly, you know what? It's very this music. I picked out all these songs, but it's very comparable to what we're talking about with wrestling, with character development. I mean, all these bands, whether it's Crew or Poison or Kiss, none of them really had number one songs. So musically, just like I'm saying with wrestling doesn't sound thick. It wasn't the music it was the show that you went to see. It was the fun. It was an escapism to get out and Kiss was prime example.
Absolutely.
And when there's women in the crowd, then they're drawing money, right?
Just like the Blizzard Brawl shows, right?
Absolutely.
800-990-3339. ESPN, 414-276-3776 locally in Milwaukee. And again, head over to Twitter. And Linda's taking a look at those tweets and such this evening. And it's good that you're in the studio here tonight, Scotty, because one thing that a lot of our listeners have talked about is the tag team division and the lack thereof. When you were wrestling at the time, there were at least 6 or 7 that we can look into. Obviously, your tag team, but with those the Dudleys and the Headbangers and APA and Kai and Tai and such. Why do you think right now it's difficult to latch on to tag team wrestling? Why? What do you think the issue is? Why is there isn't enough tag team wrestling and tag team championships and such?
I think all it's going to take is one good tag team, and then it will spiral from there. You had the same thing really in the 80s. You had the Rockers, the Hart Foundation, the Bolsheviks, the Bushwhackers, the Demolition. Yeah. Same deal. Probably the same amount of tag teams as you did in my time.
Back in the 30s, when there weren't turnbuckles. There were.
It was horrible, man. Wrestling at sandals. But it's just going to take that one tag team for it to spark something, and then they're going to have to find another team for them to work with, and it'll take off from there. It's just like the Punk thing. It's going to take, this might be the turning point of a new era, to be the same thing with the tag team division. I mean, it's definitely something missing in wrestling right now without the tag teams there for sure. It definitely adds another element to the show.
Is that suggested by the writing team, especially the new wrestlers that come in, sign a new contract? Do they try and push, I think, let's start you with tag team, or they look at a wrestler and go, no, he's not a tag team guy?
Yeah, no, I don't think so much the writers, maybe the agents and Vince himself, but a lot of those guys, those writer guys are, they're Hollywood guys. A lot of them don't know wrestling to start with. And let me tell you, those writers are, people always slam the writers, but, man, they get it from both sides. They're getting it from Vince and that side, and then they're getting chewed by the wrestlers. So that's not a job that I would want. And those guys take a lot of flack. But that's a tough gig. But no, it's for me, I was thrown into the Battle Royal with Brian Christopher. I can't remember, it was WrestleMania 15 in Boston, and I had been a babyface up to that point. Wrestling against Brian Christopher, and all of a sudden I got a call on Wednesday night saying, "Hey, you're needed in Boston this week, and you're going to be in WrestleMania in the Battle Royal with Brian Christopher." And I'm like, huh? And then that day in catering, I was actually getting a coffee, and Vince was getting a coffee at the same time. And I had actually wrestled as Scott Too Hot Taylor on the Indies years before, so I told Vince that as we're getting the coffee, and that's why it's so weird, like how things happen, And I said, I know Brian wrestles as Too Sexy. And I used to wrestle with Scott Too Hot Taylor, and he took that, and then the next week we were doing that, and we were too much, So you never know how things are going to happen.
Sure.
But that's how the tag thing happened for me. I'd really been a singles guy all the way up until that point.
You brought up Vince McMahon. Talk about being in a room with Vince McMahon. What is that like?
Well, this one time we were at the Marriott, and it was room 565, and
that's how rumors start.
Not what you're talking about.
Well, it is after 11.
Well, no, he's a very intimidating man. It's always hard to really talk to. I mean, he's the head of this huge company that he has hands on with everybody all the way down. He knows everybody, and he's the guy that can make or break you. And he's the guy. He's Vince McMahon. He's the guy you watched on TV growing up, and you know who he was, and you knew he was going to be the guy to give you a break, and so yeah. But I mean, you got to give it to him, man. I mean, he does. He works hand in hand with everybody. He knows everybody, and he's at every single TV show. I could probably count on one hand the shows he wasn't at, and the whole time I was there.
Yeah.
So.
800-990-3776, 414-276-3776. Again, head over to pwrshow.com for the latest information when our shows are on and how you can get in touch with the program.
Les, you know what? I know you joked about you can't mention your gym in Florida, but really, we've had some tweets, a few emails. Where are you at?
I am in Claremont, Florida. It's a gym called Performance 360, and we have we want it to be more of a training facility. If you're in the Orlando area where people come to train, Even if you're a member of another gym, you come there for personal training. We have some Olympic runners there, Tyson Gay, Steve Mullins, both two of the fastest guys in the world right now. We have SeaWorld trainers, dolphin trainers that come in there. People from all different...
You even did a seminar with Aaron Rodgers' personal trainer, the Green Bay Packers, the world champion Aaron Rodgers' personal trainer. Right?
Yeah, I did a certification this past February, and that was cool. A Combine 360 certification course, and that was cool at IMG facilities over in Sarasota. So that was very cool. A lot of top trainers there, and like I said, I really enjoy it. I miss the wrestling part, but at the same time, you got to go, okay, realistically, is anything going to happen for me wrestling-wise? I don't want to be 45 years old, 50 years old, still out slaving and depending on the wrestling.
Well, you don't want to wear a long sequin robe, is what you're saying?
Not in the ring, but... Remember that time you had me wear... No.
Yeah, see... But there's got to be a hotline number for you, right? Where they
there
can
is,
get a hold of you?
And I have packages, because I am in the Orlando area. People come from all over the world. I do have like single session packages if you just want to come in and do one workout. We're about 30 minutes from the tourist area, from Disney, from iDrive, and if you're interested in training with me, you can reach me at 352-325-1166.
And in case they didn't have their paper and pencil, Sandy, what was that again? One more time.
352-325-1166. And Dave here will call you back.
Personally.
Absolutely.
Tell him Dave sent you.
You know what? If the Pope can give out his phone number, we can give out ours. Not a problem, right?
We seem to give out a phone number every week.
You know what? I'm waiting for the highest bidder for Linda's phone number. As soon as that comes through. That would be on eBay in a week or so.
We'll work on that.
Thanks, pal.
The matches we see on TV sometimes are a minute and a half, 2 minutes. How important is working out, cardiovascular, the whole deal, especially being a professional wrestler? How much did you work out at that time?
At that time, not as much as I do now. But
this guy bikes 40 miles.
It's
in the morning.
Who does that?
Not me.
No.
I'm 4 blocks and
I
I'm
don't do
out.
40 miles in a couple of years.
It's hard, and that's something that people don't realize too about a WWE wrestler is you are on the road, like I said, 200 to 300 days a year. You go and you do a show. You have to try to get your workout in there somewhere. You're eating on the road, which is horrible. It's hard anyways.
You know about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, even if you're
Dunkin' Donuts.
Even if you're out, you order grilled chicken breast in a restaurant. You don't know what's being cooked in, for oils and butter, and then never mind getting out of an arena at 11 o'clock, 11:30, midnight, and then trying to find something halfway healthy to put into your body. It's your choices are Wendy's or Denny's or IHOP, and you're pretty limited. So I don't think people take all that into consideration when they think about what you do. You think you show up for the show and that's it, but it's an all day. Trying to get to the gym, trying to tan, try to be the part and play that part, and it's tough. It's a reality show waiting to happen. Nobody's really done it the correct way. I mean, even if they did it with a WWE guy, I think it would be fascinating to just see the lifestyle.
You had numerous injuries. Which was the one that made you think, boy, I don't know much longer I can do this?
Hands down, I had back surgery last March 3rd. I had my neck fused in 2001. I was out for 17 months with that, and that's where they actually had screws drilled into my neck with a steel plate, and that was easy compared to the back surgery. And I mean, really, I was in the hospital for 4 days with the back surgery in 2001, and then with the neck surgery. With the back surgery, I walked out that day, and it was funny when the nurse was wheeling me. They got to wheel you out in the wheelchair down to the lobby, and as she's wheeling me out. After just coming out of back surgery, she asked me if wrestling was fake. And I just looked at her and said, "What do you think?" But the back surgery was a rough recovery. But
look at that.
Good thumbs up.
Yeah, these crazy Milwaukee fans outside the window here.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's sticking to the window, but.
Oh no.
There you go.
Oh, it's from Florida fans, looks like.
That's it, man.
There you go. 800-990-3776, 414-276-3776. TNA, with their pay-per-view this weekend.
They really have only announced 1 or 2 matches. So they got to get things rolling pretty quick.
They do. Is there... We mentioned that it should be a pretty good pay-per-view.
So here's the problem I have. I know what's going to happen. I don't want to order it, but I know Cal is going to grab the remote and hit the purchase button again, like he does every time there's a pay-per-view, and I'll get stuck watching Destination X.
I did that as a kid, ordering pay-per-views without permission. Whoops.
Well, but those weren't wrestling pay-per-views.
Honestly, I did go to, I told you I live about 30 minutes from Universal, and I actually had my kids at Universal one day, and I ran into Jeff Jarrett and Karen Angle and Bruce Pritchard. They were
it's Karen Jarrett now.
Same thing. And Bruce Pritchard, and they were out shooting some pre-tapes, and Jeff asked me to come to the show, and I was like, I don't know. Last time I was there, I didn't get a real good feeling from them, but when you have the owner of the company asking you, I guess it's okay. So I did. I took the kids, and I can't remember the name of the pay-per-view. It was the pay-per-view with a Sting and
Jeff Hardy.
Jeff Hardy deal went down. But I actually sat for the first time in 20 years. I sat in the crowd in the back row with my kids who know nothing about wrestling at all. They don't know Undertaker from Hulk Hogan, and had a baseball hat on, and it was very cool to sit in the crowd and watch it through their eyes.
It's completely different.
Yeah, it was cool. It was a good show. Those guys, especially the X Division guys, and the can't remember the name of the match, but
would Scotty Too Hotty be an X Division guy?
Scott Taylor may have been, but honestly, Scotty Too Hotty hasn't been to the top rope since I had the cervical fusion in 01. And it was one of those things I had to go, okay, is there anything that I'm doing off the top rope that really looks that good that makes it worth going up there? And there really wasn't. I didn't really do a whole lot off the top anyways. I had the backflip I did on my entrance sometimes. But it's with what we do, you're working in a matter of inches from being in a wheelchair, not being in a wheelchair sometimes, and I just there's really no reason to do it. And I think I learned after the neck fusion, I learned to work smarter. They always talk about that with WWE. You learn to work smarter, not harder, and
right.
And I definitely did.
Is that ring as tough as everyone says it is?
It's better now. When I first went there, the ring was built for 300-pound guys, big guys, the Hogans and the Yokozunas and those guys, and it was fine. And then they changed it I think when Sean hurt his back, I might be wrong, but it was, when Sean and Brett and those guys came in, the smaller guys, they changed the ring. They took this ring out of the middle, and now it's like 2x10 boards all the way across, and it's a little bit better, but it's to the average person, they think it's a trampoline, and you get in there and you take one fall, and if you don't properly trained, it hurts a lot.
You brought up your kids. When you were that age, did you watch any wrestling then and thought, I'd like to do that?
Trying to think. My son is 6 and my daughter is 9. My first memory is really, when I really got into it, was WrestleMania, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess right around 10 years old, probably.
Who are you looking up to? Who would you have bought? I got to buy that poster or whatever the situation is.
Then I always like Ricky Steamboat, Randy Savage, the smaller guys. I could relate to those guys. I was never a big Hogan fan. I'm a bigger Hogan fan now probably because I appreciate what he's done and the way he works than I was as a kid. But then I was always a Bret Hart fan, a Shawn Michaels fan, and
you and Bret Hart share the same birthday.
We do, July 2nd.
How about that?
Yes.
So you're newly 38.
Very cool. I was telling, I'm such a dork. Yeah, I'll tell this story. But when I landed in Milwaukee on Saturday, growing up, I always knew, Bret Hitman Hart, his birthday's the same day as mine as a kid. I thought that was the coolest thing. And when I landed in Milwaukee, I turned to my phone and I had a happy birthday text from Bret Hart. Wow. That was cool. Yeah, that's the wrestling nerd in me. But yeah, that's cool. It's, one of the guys you looked up as a kid to send you something. So that's cool. And I really didn't know him a whole lot until
I did a European tour, a 4-week European tour with him last year, and he was on that. And it was very cool because I was close with Owen, but I didn't know Brett. And then Brett left the WWF, and so hanging out with him on this European tour, it was so amazing, to talk to him, and just that you could see Owen in him. You know, the way he said stuff, the way he talked, it was almost like I was talking to Owen. So that was very cool, very cool.
When we come back, we continue talking with Scotty to Hotty, taking your phone calls and much, much more. We're broadcasting live for the Time Warner Cable Studios in downtown Milwaukee. You're listening to the Pro Wrestling Report, 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report on 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com, 800-990 ESPN, 414-276-3776, locally here in Milwaukee, PWRshow.com.
What the world is listening to.
You want to head over to there to get the latest information on when Primetime will be on.
Be the booker this week.
Be the booker, and all of our shows included.
It's Stevie Ray, but
there you go.
Be the booker if you want.
So, hey, Scotty, we got a tweet for you here.
Tweet.
The great Byron asking something in regards to your training. Will he train you how to do the worm? Well, does that come in one of your training sessions, the worm?
Hey, everybody's got a price.
If you finish this 8-week course.
Yeah.
You know, Scotty, before we went to break, we talked about Owen Hart and how you hang out with Bret Hart. You were at the Over the Limit pay-per-view, I think it was Over the Limit.
Yes.
May of '99.
What did you think? I mean, when Owen came crashing to his death and the show went on, and you know, some people walked out, others were upset. You know, there's a whole lot of emotions. You were there. You were backstage. What were your thoughts?
Well, let me go back earlier in the day. I actually wore the harness that he died in that day. They had me go out to the ring and get measured because I was about the same height. The guy that was doing that was rigging the stunt came up to me and he said, "You're about the same height as Owen, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Would you come out to the ring so we can get this thing, you know, get the length of the cable right?" And they needed the cable to be just right, so there was still tension on it, but it's basically his toes were touching so he could hit the latch and release himself. So I went out and put the harness on, and they rigged the cable up to it, and you know, and then later on that night, it was actually Brian Christopher said, "Owen just fell," and you know, knowing Owen
and knowing Brian,
that's
a good point.
You know, I thought we were laughing. You know, we thought, "Oh, Owen's messing around again," because he was, you know, known for his pranks and ribs, and you know. He fell, 5 feet or whatever. And then as I started to walk down towards gorilla position, which is the area where everybody goes out, before you go through the curtain, you could see the looks on people's faces, and I can remember guys crying, and then I realized how serious it was, and I just kind of waited down there, and I was there when they wheeled him back through, and it was horrible because he was one of the people always say when somebody dies, he was a good guy.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, half the guys who've died, I wouldn't say that about, but he sincerely was just a good guy. He was somebody who was a lot like myself. I always modeled myself after him. I think he was a good family guy, and wrestling was important to him, but it wasn't his whole world. And that's the thing. When you're with WWE, they want it to be your whole life, and they want it to consume you. And I never let it. My family always came first before that.
Right.
And he was very much the same way, I think. And I think he was just trying to get through that last year or whatever it was he had left in his contract, and he said he was done, and it was cool. I wrestled him a lot, but even before I signed, I probably wrestled him 6 times when I was just an extra, and then I was.
That's enhancement talent.
Enhancement. That's a funny word, isn't it? When I went there, it was jobber, and then it was enhancement, and then it became extra, and it's basically the fourth name was it was all the same thing, man. But no, he was always so awesome. I mean, when I was an extra, basically the extra guys didn't get anything as far as they basically got just beat up. But he would always give me a lot, and I bounced him around a little bit, and he actually let me work with him, and then I worked with him on a few live events before I was under contract, and then in '93 I'd gone down to USWA in Memphis to work for Lawler and Jarrett's, and at the time they were doing a talent exchange where they would send guys down there, and he was one of the guys who came down and he traveled with me, so got to know him a little bit, and and then of course when I went to WWE he was there, and he was always he was a real, he's real in a world of phony entertainers. He was the real deal.
What was the best rib you ever saw Owen pull on somebody?
Oh, jeez. I didn't see a ton. I can remember him trying to get me in actually my hometown in Portland, Maine. He said, this when I was an extra, it was a hockey arena, and there was this type of like shower thing with a handle on it. But it wasn't in the locker room area. It was like just in the back. I don't know if they used it to wash off the Zamboni or whatever it was. But way up high, 10 feet high, there was this shower nozzle pointing straight down, and then there was a handle on the wall for it. And he said, "Hey, I need to talk to you when you have a second." So I walked over to where he was, and I saw him lean on this handle, and I looked up, and then he was getting ready to drench me. And I caught him, but it would have been phenomenal if he had got me. But he did get a few guys. But that was the thing with him. You always hear about ribs in wrestling, and his were always harmless. It was always it was funny, and nobody got hurt.
Unlike the time when Luna Vachon duct taped Brian Christopher in Chicago.
No, I don't know.
No comment on that.
Yeah.
Only in wrestling, man.
Right. There you go. Let's go to the phone. Speak to Dave in Waukesha. Dave, you're on the Pro Wrestling Report.
Hey guys, how you guys doing?
Hey, Good, Dave.
I got a question, and then I kind of got a scenario where this is probably going to go to with the CM Punk stuff.
All right.
The question is, the WWE, are they still trying to do like a 1-hour show before or after Raw on Monday nights, or is that just something that was just a rumor?
Well, I'm sure that they'll, Tough Enough was fairly successful with Stone Cold, and I'm sure that, that's definitely going to be in their future. USA was happy with the ratings that they got, and yeah, there's right now they are looking for more programming, so alternative programming besides just, a straight wrestling show.
Okay, and then like the scenario that I kind of got for the CM Punk thing would be, it kind of goes all the way up to WrestleMania, and it probably brings back either like whoever's going to make up with the anonymous GM is going to be the one that's going to try and take down like the WWE. So would it go like CM Punk wins, Cena gets fired, somebody like, I don't want to bring up Paul Heyman, but maybe like a DDP or somebody, one of the older guys from like WCW, kind of like the anonymous GM, and they try to bring back like a WCW like invasion, try to take over Vince McMahon, or like a Stephanie or Triple H try to take control from Vince.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I don't think any of the current wrestling fans have a clue what WCW really is anymore. And Stephanie's too busy being a mom to 3 kids and being in charge of creative.
Okay.
I just don't see that.
And I mean, everybody knows that the mystery GM is Jack Tunney. So
there you go.
And if you don't know who that is, Google Jack Tunney. Tunney.
All right. Some quick thoughts. Going to name off some wrestlers.
Oh boy, word association
Not
time
word,
with the cause. That's
just
what
some
it
quick
is.
Thoughts.
He wants you.
Not
he
one
wants
word.
you to bury somebody, so it'll be headlines tomorrow.
No. You could pass if you want. Jim Ross.
Always very cool with me. He signed my first contract, but always very cool, very cool, a straight shooter.
Speaking of first contract, being a wrestling fan, starting out as a junior in high school, what was it like when the first Scotty Too Hotty action figure came out?
The first time I saw it was at WrestleMania 2000. Actually, it was the first. They would always have the Jacks. It's like a semi-expandable truck that they would do your scans. That's the scanner would be at, and the Jacks people were always in L.A. and Anaheim. So, and then WrestleMania 2000 was in Anaheim. So and they had it just a loose figure. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, pretty cool.
Brian Lawler, Christopher.
Thank God the show's almost over.
You didn't even get Grandmaster in there, man.
Yeah, Grandmaster.
Right. We're very different people, but I always said he was one of the best at what he did inside the ring. You know, even when I met him in '93 when he was in Memphis, you know, he was very good. He was always a lot better than the other guys there. You know,
he is really talented.
He's very talented.
When you get him in the ring, I mean, he's one of the best out there.
Rikishi,
love him. Another, you know, I learned a lot from him, even after the Too Cool Rikishi run in 2000 when they brought us back together, and I think it was 2003 when they had the two of us teaming. I learned a lot about psychology and what to do when, and that's 95% of it, man. I mean, you can do all the fancy moves you want, and that's a part of TNA's problem right now is that guys don't know how to do their thing. You know, people can say what they want about the Worm, but it's about longevity, man, and it's about how many great, talented wrestlers have been through the WWE that nobody could name their finish. You know, and I wasn't a guy who went over all the time. I wasn't a guy who won all the time, but a lot of people don't even remember the name Scotty Too Hotty, but they might remember the name, but they don't remember with me, but they remember the Worm. Right. You know, and it's you know, that's all part of it.
Triple H.
I've known him since we started together in New England. You know, it's funny. I mentioned going to work for Lawler and Jarrett in '93. I can remember coming back and being on a show with him and him questioning me about, you know, whether he should go down there and what I was making and, you know, was it worth going down. So it was pretty cool to watch him go through the whole thing, you know, and to know him before, you know, and I tell you what, I would have kissed his ass a whole lot more if I known he was going to be married to the owner's daughter.
Shane McMahon.
Another one, man. He was, you know, I don't.
Did you run into the other
McMahon
sure.
family? Yeah, I can remember Shane wasn't even with the company yet when I first started, and I was working as an extra, and I did a lot of different stuff that guys weren't doing. You know, the backflips off the top and stuff that what a lot of guys weren't necessarily doing in the company yet. I mean, it had been done, but not a lot. And I can remember him pulling me aside in Burlington, Vermont, and just saying, you know, you've got something, you know. And this was probably a couple of years before I was even offered a contract. And he was a college kid at the time, just, you know, nothing really to do with the company. But I knew he was Vince's son, you know. So. Yeah.
Scotty Too Hotty.
Yeah.
Almost 2 hours live in ESPN studios.
I ran out of guys to talk about.
You know what?
I missed somebody.
You know what? Cousin Jack.
Yes.
We're in association with Cousin Jack. And you can follow Cousin Jack on Twitter at CuzJackKoshik.
And what's his phone number so people get a hold of him?
414-915-9292. If you want to book Screech, that's who you have to call. Because he's available for bookings also.
One call, that's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Call Cousin Jack. Tell him Scotty Too Hotty says hello.
The guy's a legend, man.
Early on the program, we gave out some information as far as how people can get a hold of you. And even if you're not in the Orlando area, if you want to get in tip-top shape, and you know how they say, here's the finished product?
Yeah.
I mean, you are in fantastic shape right now. You mentioned that you feel better, you're more in shape better than you were in the past. How can people get a hold of you to take advantage of this?
They can call me at 352-325-1166. And that is a voicemail. It will go directly to a voicemail, but I'll get back to you. And like I said, whether you're on vacation in the Orlando area or, you know, people come from all over the world, man, and to come there. So if you want to do one session or if you live in the area, you know, we have different packages. But, you know, like I said, it's a premier training facility. And, you know,
wait. You just gave out your number for people to check out your package.
That's not what we're going to end on, really.
No.
What we're going to end on is August 4th as Scotty's coming back to town.
Yes.
It'll be Scotty Too Hotty, Al Snow, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, Tracy Brooks at the Ozaukee County Fair in Cedarburg, Wisconsin. BlizzardBrawl.com for more information. Maybe we can set up like a seminar where you can come out and, you know, show that planking technique. That's pretty over with everybody.
I want to learn how to do the worm.
I think I'm just going to train Dave on August 4th at the fair.
At the fair, huh?
Get there early.
Yeah, right?
Learn how to do it.
He's going to plank.
Yes. Planking is the way to go from what I understand.
Hey, plank you, man. I'm out of here.
There's walking the plank, and then there's that.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Again, head over to pwrshow.com. Get the latest information in regards to when next show is on, which will be next Monday. As far as the radio show.
Oh, that means Nelson's back.
The band Nelson?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, he sings like the band Nelson.
They're pretty hot, the Swedish chicks.
Oh, my gosh.
But you can check that out, especially with Primetime and Be the Booker. Obviously, a TNA pay-per-view coming up this weekend. We want your thoughts on that, the good, the bad, any in regards to the world of professional wrestling. And, of course, the whole deal with CM Punk and how this thing's going to end. We want your predictions. And you can hit it on Twitter.
At PWR Show. Check out Scotty on Twitter. At the Scotty2Hotty. The number 2 Hotty. And, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the 4th of July.
Yes. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July, especially those that celebrated here in the States.
And super appreciate all the fans that came down to Six Flags today for the 2 shows with Scotty and GLCW and Pro Wrestling Blitz. Fantastic time, tremendous time, and we truly appreciate that.
Sounds good. Appreciate everyone calling in. Much appreciation for Scotty2Hotty. Thank you, Scotty, for stopping in. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
For the Hall of Famer, Dave Hero, the lovely Linda Kay, I'm the Cos. Tillman behind the glass, doing a fantastic job producing the program. We'll do this again next Monday night. Pro Wrestling Report, 540 ESPN, ESPNMilwaukee.com. Have a great night.